Volume 1, Chapter 1, A World Before the Aztecs. Around 1,000 years ago, central Mexico was already home to thriving civilizations. The Aztecs did not invent cities, agriculture, astronomy, or monumental architecture. They inherited thousands of years of cultural knowledge. Before them came civilizations such as the Olmec civilization, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, followed centuries later by the people of Teotihuacan, whose enormous pyramids still stand today. Farther south flourished the many cultures collectively known as the Maya civilization. The future Aztecs admired these earlier peoples deeply. When they encountered the abandoned city of Teotihuacan, they believed it had been built by gods rather than humans. The massive pyramids were already ancient ruins by their time, inspiring awe and mystery. Chapter 2. Aztlan, the legendary homeland. According to Aztec tradition, their ancestors lived in a place called Aztlan. No one today knows exactly where Aztlan was. Some scholars believe it may have been in northwestern Mexico. Others think it is a symbolic homeland rather than a precise geographic location. In Aztec tradition, Aztlan was remembered as a place of water, birds, reeds, and abundance. Yet the people eventually left it after receiving a divine command from their patron deity, Huitzilopochtli. The journey ahead would take generations. Imagine growing up knowing that your parents had spent their entire lives traveling, and that your own children might still be wandering before a permanent home was found. That was the reality for many early Mexica families. Chapter 3. Life on the road. Travel was exhausting. Families carried everything they owned. Women transported woven mats, cooking pots, blankets, baskets, weaving tools, and precious seeds saved for planting. Men carried weapons, hunted, fished, cut wood, and defended the group from hostile neighbors. Children gathered firewood, fetched water, and learned practical skills from an early age. The elderly, if able, walked beside everyone else. Those who became too weak might ride on simple litters or be assisted by younger relatives. Every member of society contributed. Unlike modern childhood, there was little opportunity simply to play all day. Even young children had responsibilities appropriate for their age. Chapter 4. Men during the migration. The early Mexica men were not yet the famous eagle and jaguar warriors history remembers. Many were hunters. Others became scouts. Some negotiated with neighboring peoples. Others built temporary shelters every few days as the community continued moving. Men also protected caravans during dangerous crossings. Central Mexico was politically fragmented. Numerous city-states competed for land, resources, and influence. Conflict could erupt unexpectedly. Learning discipline, endurance, and courage became essential qualities expected of boys as they matured. Yet bravery was not measured only by fighting. A dependable father who provided food, repaired shelters, and protected his family earned tremendous respect. Chapter 5. Women during the migration. Women were equally vital to survival. While the men often hunted or defended the group, women ensured daily life continued. They prepared meals. They ground maize using heavy stone grinding slabs. They wove clothing. They cared for children. They treated injuries using medicinal plants. They collected edible herbs. Many women possessed extensive knowledge of local plants, roots, berries, and medicines gathered over generations. Some likely knew which herbs eased childbirth. Others recognized poisonous plants. Knowledge itself became a form of survival. Without women's labor, migration would have been impossible. Chapter 6. Family above all. The Mexica traveled as extended families. Grandparents, parents, children, uncles, aunts, cousins. Marriage was not only about romance. It strengthened communities. Families pooled labor and resources. Grandparents cared for grandchildren, while parents worked. Older siblings watched younger children. Everyone had responsibilities. The survival of the community depended on cooperation more than individual success. Chapter 7. Learning without schools. During the migration, formal schools did not yet exist. Education happened constantly. A boy learned by walking beside his father. A girl learned while helping her mother grind maize or weave. Children listened carefully to stories told around evening fires. These stories preserved history, religion, and practical wisdom. Since no alphabetic writing system existed as it does today, memory was essential. Every generation became responsible for preserving knowledge. Chapter 8. Faith on the journey. Religion touched nearly every aspect of life. The Mexica believed their gods actively guided them. Dreams could be meaningful. Natural events could carry messages. Birds, weather, stars, and unusual occurrences were often interpreted spiritually. The priests accompanying the migration maintained rituals and consulted sacred calendars. Most importantly, they watched for the promised sign that would reveal their permanent home. Chapter 9. The Promised Sign. Huitzilopochtli promised that one day they would find a remarkable vision. An eagle perched upon a cactus growing from a rock in the middle of a lake. This sign would identify their destined homeland. Generations searched. Many likely doubted. Some surely wondered if they would ever arrive. Yet the migration continued. Faith united the people even through uncertainty. Chapter 10. Reaching the Valley of Mexico. Eventually, the Mexica entered the magnificent Valley of Mexico. The landscape was unlike anything many had previously seen. Huge lakes reflected mountains capped with snow. Volcanoes towered over fertile valleys. Cities already surrounded the lakes. Powerful rulers controlled farmland and trade. The Mexica were newcomers, poor, landless, often viewed with suspicion. Many neighboring peoples considered them uncivilized outsiders. They were hired as mercenaries because of their military skill, but were rarely welcomed as equals. Chapter 11. Finding Home. In 1325, according to tradition, the Mexica finally witnessed the long-awaited sign. An eagle perched upon a prickly pear cactus growing from a rocky island in Lake Texcoco. To many, the island seemed an impossible place to build a city. It was marshy, flood-prone, limited in space. Yet the Mexica believed this was exactly where the gods intended them to settle. They named their city Tenochtitlan. Few could have imagined that within 2 centuries it would become one of the largest cities on Earth. Chapter 12. Building the Impossible. Construction began immediately. Men drove wooden stakes into shallow lake beds. Women organized food preparation for laborers. Families transported reeds, timber, and stone by canoe. Children carried smaller materials. Everyone worked. They expanded the island by creating artificial land using woven reed foundations filled with mud and vegetation. These ingenious engineering techniques transformed shallow water into stable ground over time. Roadways connected the island to the mainland. Canals allowed transportation by canoe. Freshwater systems were gradually developed. The city literally grew from the lake itself. Chapter 13. A New Beginning. With a permanent home finally established, life changed dramatically. Instead of temporary shelters, permanent houses appeared. Instead of constant migration, people planted crops. Markets developed. Craft specialists emerged. Religious ceremonies became grander. Children were born never knowing the hardships of endless wandering. Yet the stories remained. Parents reminded them, "Our ancestors walked for generations before we arrived here." That shared memory shaped Aztec identity for centuries. Volume 2. Chapter 1. The Aztec Home. Most ordinary families lived in modest one-story homes made from adobe, sun-dried mud bricks, stone, wood, and reeds. Roofs were often thatched with grass or reeds. Homes usually surrounded a small courtyard. The courtyard served many purposes: cooking, grinding maize, drying clothing, raising turkeys or dogs, children's play, family gatherings. Inside, furniture was minimal. Families slept on woven reed mats rolled out at night and stored away during the day. There were no sofas, tables, or large wardrobes like today. Instead, possessions were carefully organized in baskets and wooden chests. A family's wealth was not measured by how much furniture they owned, but by land, tools, clothing, jewelry, and access to food. Chapter 2. Birth. Childbirth was one of the most important and dangerous moments in Aztec life. Women gave birth at home under the care of experienced midwives. These midwives were highly respected. They possessed knowledge passed down through generations about pregnancy, labor, herbal medicine, infantcare, women's health. The birth itself was viewed almost like a battle. A woman giving birth displayed courage comparable to that of a warrior entering combat. If she died during childbirth, she was honored with extraordinary respect. The Aztecs believed women who died giving birth became powerful spirits who accompanied the sun during part of its daily journey across the sky. This belief illustrates how deeply they valued motherhood. Chapter 3. Welcoming a baby. Immediately after birth, ceremonies began. The baby's umbilical cord was handled differently depending on whether the child was a boy or a girl. For boys, tradition held that the cord might be buried on a battlefield, symbolizing a future connected to courage and public service. For girls, it was often buried near the family home, representing their important role within the household and community. These customs reflected social expectations, not judgments about worth. Both boys and girls were considered precious gifts. Parents believed children belonged to both the family and the gods. Chapter 4. Naming the child. Children were often named according to the sacred calendar or after natural events surrounding their birth. Names could refer to animals, flowers, rain, eagles, jaguars, precious stones, days of the calendar. Names carried spiritual significance. Some parents consulted priests to determine fortunate names. Others chose names honoring ancestors. Chapter 5. Early childhood. Young children spent most of their early years with their mothers and grandparents. Babies were carried in cloth slings while mothers worked. As toddlers grew older, they explored the courtyard while adults completed daily tasks nearby. Children learned by watching. No one sat them down with textbooks. Instead, they observed cooking, farming, weaving, pottery, canoe building, fishing, religious ceremonies. Learning happened naturally. Chapter 6. Discipline. Aztec parents believed love required discipline. Children were expected to become responsible adults. Young children were corrected gently. As they grew older, discipline became stricter. Historical sources describe punishments that could include extra chores or public correction, and some accounts describe harsher methods. Modern historians note that not every reported practice can be verified equally well, and customs likely varied between families. Parents emphasized respect, honesty, hard work, humility, self-control. A lazy child was seen as someone who would struggle to contribute to the community. Chapter 7. Education. One of the remarkable aspects of Aztec society was its commitment to education. Both boys and girls received instruction, although the subjects often differed. Girls typically learned weaving, cooking, household management, childcare, religious traditions, textile production. Boys commonly learned farming, construction, craftsmanship, fishing, military training, leadership skills. Formal schools also existed. Most boys attended either the Telpochcali, where practical skills and military discipline were emphasized, or the Kalmakak, which trained many nobles and future priests, administrators, and scholars. Some girls from noble families also received advanced education connected with religion and elite households. Chapter 8. The daily routine of women. An ordinary woman's day often began before sunrise. She lit the cooking fire. She prepared maize. Grinding maize with a heavy stone called a metate required tremendous physical effort. This task alone could take hours every day. After preparing dough, she made tortillas that would feed the family. She also gathered water, swept the home, wove cloth, repaired clothing, raised children, visited markets, prepared evening meals. Many women worked nearly every waking hour, yet they also laughed, sang, shared stories, and visited relatives. Community remained central. Chapter 9. The daily routine of men. An ordinary man also rose before dawn. Depending on his occupation, he might spend the day farming, fishing, hunting, building, trading, carving stone, making pottery, working precious metals, serving as a porter, training for military campaigns. After returning home, many helped repair tools, maintain the house, or participate in neighborhood responsibilities. Fathers were expected to teach their children by example. Chapter 10. Marriage. Marriage usually occurred after both partners reached adulthood. Families often helped arrange introductions, although the wishes of the couple could also matter. A marriage ceremony included symbolic acts such as tying the garments of the bride and groom together, representing the joining of two lives. Marriage united not only two individuals but also two families. After marriage, a couple established their household, often near relatives. Chapter 11. Love. Although marriages served practical purposes, affection was also valued. Poetry from the Aztecs speaks of love, longing, beauty, and companionship. Husbands and wives worked closely together. Successful households depended on cooperation. Each person's contributions were considered essential. Chapter 12. Food. Maize was the foundation of nearly every meal. Other common foods included beans, squash, tomatoes, chili peppers, avocados, amaranth, cactus pads, wild greens. Protein came from turkey, deer, rabbits, fish, waterfowl, insects in some regions. Chocolate made from cacao was a prized drink, especially among the elite, though it was prepared very differently from modern hot chocolate. Chapter 13. Clothing. Ordinary men often wore a maxtlatl, loincloth, and a cloak called a tilma. Women commonly wore a skirt called a kwitel and a sleeveless blouse called a huipil. Clothing reflected occupation, social status, wealth, occasion. Nobles wore garments decorated with colorful feathers, intricate embroidery, and fine cotton. Commoners generally wore simpler clothing made from coarser fibers. Chapter 14. Markets. Markets were the heartbeat of Aztec cities. The enormous market at Tlatelolco astonished later Spanish observers. Thousands of people gathered there to trade. Food, clothing, pottery, jewelry, medicines, flowers, live animals, building materials, and household tools. Women played a major role as vendors and shoppers. Professional merchants also traveled long distances, bringing luxury goods from other regions. Chapter 15. Community. Neighbors helped one another during construction, harvests, weddings, funerals, and festivals. Families rarely lived in isolation. Communities functioned almost like extended families. Children often knew everyone living nearby. Elders were respected as keepers of wisdom and tradition. Chapter 16. Growing old. Old age was honored. Grandparents helped raise children. They preserved oral history. They settled disputes. They advised younger generations. Many elderly people remained active in their communities for as long as their health allowed. Chapter 17. Death. Death was viewed as another stage of existence rather than simply an ending. The destination of a person's spirit was believed to depend largely on the manner of their death rather than on whether they had lived a morally good or bad life. For example, traditions held that warriors who died in battle and women who died in childbirth received especially honored afterlife roles. People who died by causes associated with rain and water were believed to go to the paradise of the rain deity. Many others journeyed to Mictlan, the underworld, where the soul completed a difficult passage over several years. Families honored the deceased with ceremonies, offerings, and remembrance. What can I do first? Volume 3. Chapter 1. A Precious Feather. The birth of a daughter was greeted with ceremony and celebration. Parents believed every child was a gift from the gods, and girls were welcomed with blessings just as boys were. Soon after birth, an experienced midwife performed rituals meant to welcome the baby into the community and ask for divine protection. The midwife spoke words of encouragement over the infant, expressing hopes that she would grow into a wise, hard-working, and honorable woman. Babies were seen as fragile, but also as full of potential. Chapter 2. Growing up. During her earliest years, a little girl spent almost all of her time with her mother, grandmother, older sisters, and female relatives. Her education began immediately, not through formal lessons but through observation. She watched her mother grind maize, weave cloth, prepare meals, care for younger siblings, organize household supplies, speak respectfully with neighbors, and welcome guests. Children learned by imitation. At first, she was given tiny tasks. Perhaps she would hand her mother a basket, fetch a cup, pick up dropped vegetables, or maybe carry a small bundle of firewood. Adults praised effort rather than perfection. Every small responsibility prepared her for adulthood. Chapter 3. Learning responsibility. As she grew older, expectations increased. Around the age of 5 or 6, she might begin sweeping floors, carrying water in miniature containers, helping prepare tortillas, feeding domestic animals, gathering flowers, or watching younger siblings. None of these jobs were considered punishment. They were simply part of belonging to a family. Children were expected to contribute according to their abilities. Chapter 4. Clothing. Young girls often wore simple tunics. As they matured, their clothing changed. Adult women typically wore the huipil, a sleeveless or short-sleeved blouse. These garments could be simple or elaborately embroidered depending on wealth. The kwitel, a wrapped skirt reaching below the knees. Fine cotton garments were prized. Colorful dyes came from plants, insects, and minerals. Noble women wore brilliantly decorated clothing with intricate embroidery. Common women wore simpler but still beautifully crafted garments. Chapter 5. Hair. Hair held cultural significance. Girls usually wore their hair differently from married women. Many women wore long hair, often braided or tied. Noble women sometimes decorated their hairstyles with ribbons, flowers, or fine ornaments. Hair represented care, dignity, and social identity. Chapter 6. Beauty. The Aztecs appreciated beauty, but not in exactly the same ways people often do today. Cleanliness was highly valued. People bathed frequently, far more often than many Europeans of the same era. Women used herbal soaps, fragrant flowers, perfumed resins, or natural oils. Some wore jewelry made from jade, turquoise, shell, or gold, especially among the nobility. Bright clothing and skilled embroidery were admired. Beauty was closely connected with order, cleanliness, and graceful behavior. Chapter 7. Education. Most girls learned primarily at home. Their education included cooking, weaving, childcare, religious traditions, household management, respectful speech, and hospitality. Some girls from noble families received additional instruction connected with temples or elite households where they learned the reading of pictorial manuscripts, ritual knowledge, music, and other specialized skills. Education was lifelong. Even married women continued learning from older relatives. Chapter 8. Weaving. One of the greatest arts practiced by Aztec women was weaving. Creating cloth required remarkable patience. First, cotton or maguey fibers had to be cleaned, then spun into thread, dyed, prepared, and finally woven using a backstrap loom. Some garments required weeks, others required months. Exceptional weavers earned widespread admiration. Cloth itself functioned as an important form of wealth and tribute. Chapter 9. Food preparation. Preparing food consumed much of each day. The process began by treating dried maize with an alkaline solution made using lime or ash, which made the grain more nutritious and easier to grind. After soaking, the maize was rinsed, ground on a metate, mixed into dough, formed into tortillas, and cooked over a clay griddle. This daily work demanded strength and endurance. Chapter 10. Women as healers. Not every woman spent her life entirely within the household. Many became respected healers. These women knew hundreds of medicinal plants. They treated cuts, burns, fever, digestive illness, broken bones, and childbirth complications. Knowledge passed from one generation to another. Some women became famous throughout their communities for their medical skill. Chapter 11. Midwives. Midwives ranked among the most respected women in Aztec society. Their work extended far beyond delivering babies. They advised expectant mothers, recommended nutrition, prepared herbal remedies, performed ceremonies before and after birth, and supported families during difficult deliveries. Some also cared for newborns during their first days of life. Their combination of practical experience and spiritual responsibility gave them a special place in the community. Chapter 12. Women in the marketplace. One of the busiest places in the empire was the market. Many vendors were women. They sold fruits, vegetables, herbs, flowers, pottery, cloth, cooked meals, and medicines. Some specialized in luxury goods. Others traveled between communities to trade. Marketplace rules were strict. Officials monitored weights, measures, and prices to maintain order. Women who became successful merchants could earn considerable respect. Chapter 13. Marriage. Marriage generally occurred after a woman reached adulthood. Families often helped arrange introductions, and ceremonies formally united two households. A wedding involved ritual blessings, feasting, and symbolic acts that represented the joining of two lives. Marriage was considered both a personal and community commitment. Chapter 14. Motherhood. Motherhood represented one of the most honored roles available to women. Mothers became teachers, nurses, counselors, protectors, storytellers. They introduced children to religion, taught manners, explained traditions, corrected behavior, and encouraged kindness. Nearly every lesson of early childhood came from mothers and grandmothers. Chapter 15. Noble women. Life differed greatly for women born into noble families. Although many still learned weaving and household management, they often had servants who helped with daily labor. Noble women received finer clothing, lived in larger homes, participated in political marriages. Some influenced alliances between powerful families. While they rarely ruled the empire directly, they could exercise significant influence within elite society. Chapter 16. Elder women. With age came respect. Grandmothers occupied honored positions. They remembered family history, helped settle disagreements, passed down stories, and taught grandchildren songs, prayers, recipes, weaving techniques, and moral lessons. Their experience was valued. Chapter 17. Religion. Women participated actively in religious life. They attended festivals, offered prayers, and prepared ritual foods and textiles used in ceremonies. Some served in temple-related roles, especially at shrines dedicated to female deities or connected with ritual duties. Religious life was woven into the rhythm of the year, and women helped preserve many traditions within the home and community. Chapter 18. Strength beyond the battlefield. To outsiders, Aztec strength often appears to have rested on warriors. But another kind of strength sustained the empire every day. It was the strength of women who produced clothing, raised children, preserved knowledge, prepared food, practiced medicine, managed households, traded in markets, and supported religious traditions. Without them, armies would have gone unfed, children untaught, and communities unable to function. Their labor was less visible than military victories, but it was essential to the survival of the empire. Volume 4, Chapter 1. A boy's first years. An Aztec boy entered the world surrounded by ceremony. His parents asked the gods to protect him. His family celebrated his arrival. His umbilical cord was traditionally buried in a place associated with warfare or public duty, symbolizing hopes that he would grow into someone who served and protected his community. This was less a prediction than an expression of the values adults hoped he would embrace: courage, responsibility, and service. Like his sisters, he spent his earliest years close to his mother. He watched, listened, and learned. Babies were carried on their mothers' backs while daily life continued around them. Chapter 2. Childhood. By the time he was 4 or 5 years old, adults expected him to begin helping. His first responsibilities were simple: collecting kindling, carrying water in small containers, scaring birds away from crops, watching younger brothers or sisters, and running errands. These jobs were never considered beneath him. Everyone contributed. Children learned that even small tasks mattered. Chapter 3. Fathers. An Aztec father was expected to do far more than provide food. He became a teacher. He demonstrated honesty, self-control, courage, hard work, respect for elders, and religious devotion. His son watched everything: how he spoke, how he treated his wife, whether he worked diligently, and whether he kept his promises. Character was taught more through example than lectures. Chapter 4. Formal education. One of the remarkable achievements of Aztec society was its organized education. Most boys attended school. The two best-known schools were Telpochcali, the House of Youth, where most commoners attended and learned military discipline, history, community responsibilities, physical endurance, agriculture, and public works. And Kalmakak, usually attended by the sons of nobles, though exceptional commoners could sometimes enter. There, students studied religion, astronomy, mathematics, reading pictorial manuscripts, public speaking, law, government, and the sacred calendars. Many future priests, judges, and rulers were educated there. Education was demanding. Students were expected to be disciplined, respectful, and hardworking. Chapter 5. Learning a trade. Not every boy became a warrior. Many followed their father's profession. Some became stone masons, potters, carpenters, feather artists, goldsmiths, jewelers, basket makers, canoe builders, or farmers. Each trade required years of apprenticeship. A master craftsman often trained his sons and younger relatives, ensuring valuable knowledge remained within the family. Chapter 6. Farming. Most Aztec men were farmers. Without them, cities could not survive. Their principal crop was maize. They also cultivated beans, squash, tomatoes, chili peppers, amaranth, flowers, and medicinal herbs. Many worked on chinampas, the famous floating gardens. These were not floating rafts, but carefully engineered plots built up in the shallow waters of Lake Texcoco. Layers of mud, vegetation, and organic material created extremely fertile farmland. Farmers traveled to these fields by canoe, often beginning work before sunrise. The Chinampas produced multiple harvests each year and helped feed one of the largest cities in the world. Chapter 7. Hunting and Fishing. Although farming supplied most food, hunting and fishing remained important. Men hunted deer, rabbits, and wild birds. Fishermen caught fish, frogs, crayfish, and waterfowl. They also gathered edible algae and aquatic plants from the lakes. Knowledge of seasonal changes was essential. A skilled fisherman understood the rhythms of the water, much as a farmer understood the seasons. Chapter 8. Warriors. Military service was highly respected. For many young men, becoming a warrior offered opportunities for honor and advancement. Training emphasized discipline, physical endurance, teamwork, strategy, and obedience. The goal in many battles was not simply to kill opponents. Capturing enemy warriors alive could be especially valued because captives played important roles in diplomacy, displays of victory, and certain religious ceremonies. Experienced warriors could join elite military societies, including those associated with eagles or jaguars. Membership reflected proven skill and courage. Chapter 9. The Obsidian Sword. One of the most recognizable Aztec weapons was the macuahuitl. It was a wooden club fitted with razor-sharp obsidian blades along its edges. Obsidian, a volcanic glass, could be sharper than many steel scalpels used today, though it was also brittle. Warriors also used spears, atlatls, spear throwers, bows, slings, and shields. Each weapon required practice and maintenance. Chapter 10. The Priesthood. Not every respected man wore armor. Priests held tremendous influence. They studied sacred calendars, astronomy, rituals, history, genealogies, and ceremonies. Many rose before dawn every day. Their lives involved strict routines of study, ritual, fasting at certain times, and caring for temples. They advised rulers on the timing of important ceremonies and public events. Chapter 11. Merchants. Long-distance merchants, called pochteca, occupied a unique place in Aztec society. They traveled hundreds of miles, crossing mountains, forests, and deserts. They brought back cacao, fine cotton, tropical bird feathers, jade, turquoise, rubber, and exotic animal skins. Because they traveled so widely, they also gathered information about distant lands. Their journeys could be dangerous, requiring negotiation skills and careful planning. Chapter 12. Craftsmen. Some men devoted their lives to creating extraordinary works of art. Feather workers produced dazzling mosaics from brightly colored bird feathers. Stone carvers created sculptures of gods, rulers, and animals. Goldsmiths crafted intricate ornaments. Potters made both practical household vessels and ceremonial pieces. Their creations reflected generations of accumulated knowledge and artistic skill. Chapter 13. Marriage. Marriage marked the transition into full adulthood. Once married, a man assumed greater responsibilities. He was expected to support his family, maintain the household, contribute to the community, and raise children with patience and discipline. A respected husband was dependable rather than merely strong. Chapter 14. Fatherhood. Children watched their fathers closely. Fathers taught sons practical skills such as farming, fishing, building, and craftsmanship. They also taught daughters through their example of how family members should treat one another with respect. Evenings often became times for storytelling, instruction, and sharing family history. Chapter 15. Old age. An elderly man who had lived honorably became a valued advisor. His experience carried weight. Younger people sought his opinions on farming, family matters, disputes, and ceremonies. Many elders no longer performed heavy labor, but they continued to contribute through wisdom and guidance. Chapter 16. Honor. To an Aztec man, honor was not limited to success in war. A man earned respect by working hard, providing for his family, keeping promises, respecting elders, serving the community, and showing self-discipline. These ideals appeared in speeches, advice from parents, and moral teachings passed from one generation to the next. Chapter 17. Were all men warriors? No. This is one of the biggest misconceptions about the Aztecs. The empire depended on countless men who never became famous soldiers. Most men were farmers. Others were builders, merchants, artisans, priests, fishermen, scribes, or laborers. Without them, The roads, canals, temples, markets, and homes of Tenochtitlan could never have existed. Volume 5, Chapter 1, A Living Universe. The Aztecs believed the universe was alive. Everything possessed sacred meaning. Mountains, rivers, trees, animals, rain, lightning, stars, and even the wind were understood as spiritually significant. They did not necessarily see these things as gods themselves, but understood them as filled with spiritual power and closely connected to divine beings. Nature was not something to dominate. It was something to live alongside with respect and care. Chapter 2, The Creation of the World. According to Aztec tradition, the universe had not been created only once. It had been created and destroyed multiple times. Each era was called a sun. The Aztecs believed they were living in the fifth sun after 4 previous worlds had ended through different catastrophes in their sacred stories. One world ended with jaguars, another with fierce winds, another with fire, and another with floods. Each destruction made way for a new creation. These were religious narratives explaining the order of the cosmos, not historical accounts in the modern sense. Chapter 3, The Fifth Sun. The story tells of the gods gathering after the destruction of the previous world. Someone had to become the new sun. According to the tradition, a humble deity stepped forward and sacrificed himself by entering a great fire. He became the sun. Another deity followed and became the moon. But the new sun would not move across the sky until the other gods also offered their own sacrifices. From this story came an important belief. Life continued because the gods had first given of themselves. Many Aztecs believed that humans owed a reciprocal debt to the divine powers who sustained the universe. This idea of reciprocal obligation shaped many religious practices. Chapter 4, The Gods. The Aztec pantheon included many deities, each associated with aspects of nature, society, or the cosmos. Among the most important were Huitzilopochtli, associated with the sun and the Mexica people's patronage, Tlaloc, connected with rain, storms, and agricultural fertility, Quetzalcoatl, often linked with wind, learning, creation, and priestly knowledge, Tezcatlipoca, associated with power, fate, conflict, and change, Xochiquetzal, connected with flowers, beauty, weaving, and love, and Coatlicue, revered as a powerful mother figure associated with earth and life. Different communities emphasize different deities depending on local traditions and needs. Chapter 5. Were the gods good or evil? The Aztecs generally did not divide their gods into simple categories of good and evil. Instead, divine beings reflected the complexity of the world itself. Rain could nourish crops or destroy them with floods. Fire warmed homes, but could also burn them. The wind cooled the earth, but could become a devastating storm. The gods embodied these powerful, sometimes unpredictable forces. Life required balance rather than the triumph of one force over another. Chapter 6. The Temple. Every city contained sacred places. The largest temples rose high above surrounding buildings. Climbing the long stairways symbolized approaching the divine. Temples were brightly painted. They displayed sculptures, banners, incense burners, and offerings. From their summits, priests conducted ceremonies visible to large crowds below. These temples served as religious, ceremonial, and political centers. Chapter 7. Priests. Priests devoted themselves to religious life. Many spent years studying sacred calendars, rituals, astronomy, oral traditions, pictorial manuscripts, and ceremonial procedures. Some lived within temple complexes. Their responsibilities included organizing festivals, conducting rituals, advising rulers, caring for sacred objects, and teaching students. Their role required discipline and learning as much as ceremony. Chapter 8. Sacred calendars. The Aztecs used more than one calendar. A 260-day ritual calendar guided many religious observances and was used in divination and naming. A 365-day solar calendar helped organize agriculture and seasonal festivals. Together, these calendars created repeating cycles that influenced ceremonies, planting, and public life. Time itself was considered sacred. Chapter 9. Festivals. The Aztec year included many festivals. Some celebrated rain, harvests, flowers, warfare, the changing seasons, and particular deities. These events filled cities with music, dance, food, incense, colorful costumes, public processions, and offerings. Entire neighborhoods participated. Children often looked forward to these celebrations, while adults prepared for them well in advance. Chapter 10. Music. Music formed an essential part of worship. Temple ceremonies included large drums, flutes, shell trumpets, rattles, singing, and chanting. Music helped coordinate dances and processions while also expressing devotion and marking sacred occasions. Chapter 11. Incense. The fragrance of copal resin filled temples. Copal incense was burned during many ceremonies. Its rising smoke symbolized prayers ascending toward the divine. Visitors approaching major temples would have smelled incense long before reaching the entrance. Chapter 12. Offerings. The Aztecs gave many kinds of offerings. These included flowers, food, incense, feathers, cacao, paper ornaments, and precious stones. Offerings expressed gratitude, respect, or requests for divine favor. The intention was to maintain a reciprocal relationship between humans and the sacred world. Chapter 13. Human sacrifice. One of the most discussed and difficult aspects of Aztec religion is the practice of human sacrifice. Historical evidence, including indigenous sources and archaeological discoveries, shows that human sacrifice did occur in parts of Aztec religious life. The reasons behind it are often misunderstood. Many Aztecs believed that because the gods had sacrificed themselves to sustain the universe, humans likewise owed a sacred debt. In certain ceremonies, captives from warfare or, in some cases, other individuals selected for specific rituals were sacrificed as offerings. These practices were also connected to politics and displays of imperial power. From a modern perspective, these acts are deeply disturbing, and most people today would regard them as morally unacceptable. Understanding why they occurred historically does not mean approving of them. For the Aztecs, however, these rituals were understood within a worldview very different from our own. They believed such ceremonies helped preserve the cosmic order. Chapter 14. Women in religion. Women participated in religious life in many ways. They prepared ritual foods, created ceremonial textiles, offered prayers, joined festivals, visited shrines, and observed household rituals. Some served in temple-related roles or dedicated themselves to religious service for periods of time. Religious practice was not limited to public temples. Much of it took place within homes. Chapter 15. Children and religion. Religion shaped childhood from the very beginning. Children learned sacred stories, prayers, festival traditions, respect for elders, and community responsibilities. Participation in ceremonies helped children understand their place within society and the natural world. Chapter 16. Death. Death did not end existence. The destination of the soul depended largely on the manner of death rather than on moral judgment. Some traditions held that warriors who died in battle and women who died during childbirth accompanied the sun. Those who died through causes associated with water were believed to journey to the paradise of Tlaloc, and many others traveled to Mictlan, the underworld, where the soul completed a long and challenging journey. Family members honored the dead with remembrance and offerings. Chapter 17. Did the Aztecs fear their gods? The relationship was complex. The gods were respected, honored, and sometimes feared because they represented immense natural and cosmic forces. People sought balance with these powers through prayer, offerings, ceremonies, and ethical conduct within their communities. Religion was not only about avoiding disaster, it was also about expressing gratitude for rain, harvests, family, and life itself. Chapter 18. A sacred way of living. For the Aztecs, there was no sharp boundary between the sacred and the ordinary. Grinding maize, building a canoe, weaving cloth, planting seeds, raising children, celebrating festivals, and honoring ancestors could all carry spiritual meaning. The world itself was understood as a place where humans, nature, and the divine were connected through cycles of life, obligation, and renewal. Volume 6, Chapter 1. What made someone attractive? Standards of beauty varied depending on age, status, and local customs, but several qualities were widely admired. Cleanliness ranked among the most important. Unlike some societies of the same era, the Aztecs bathed frequently. Many people bathed daily if water was available. Some households even had simple sweat baths called temazcals, where heated stones produced steam. These spaces were used for hygiene, relaxation, and, in some cases, recovery after illness or childbirth. A clean appearance reflected self-respect and discipline. Hair. Long, healthy hair was admired. Women often wore carefully braided hairstyles. Men generally wore their hair shorter, although hairstyles could change with age, occupation, or military achievements. Hair was combed regularly using carved wooden or bone combs. Flowers and decorative ribbons might be added during celebrations. Clothing. Clothing communicated many things immediately. A person's occupation, wealth, age, social rank, and achievements could often be recognized simply by what they wore. The wealthy enjoyed soft cotton garments. Commoners frequently wore clothing woven from maguey fibers or simpler cotton fabrics. Bright colors were popular. Natural dyes produced deep reds, brilliant blues, golden yellows, and rich greens. Color-filled Aztec cities. Chapter 2. Jewelry. Jewelry existed throughout society, although luxury materials were reserved for the elite. Common ornaments included shell beads, bone carvings, clay pendants, and copper ornaments. Nobles might wear gold, turquoise, jade, obsidian, and exotic feathers. Jewelry often carried symbolic meaning beyond decoration. Chapter 3. Perfumes. The Aztecs enjoyed pleasant scents. They used flowers, copal resin, herbs, and natural oils. Some homes contained bundles of fragrant flowers simply because they were beautiful. The smell of flowers became closely associated with celebration, poetry, and refined living. Chapter 4. Falling in love. Love certainly existed. Aztec poetry contains surprisingly tender reflections on affection, longing, and the fleeting nature of life. Young people often met at markets, during festivals, through extended families, within neighborhoods, and at community celebrations. Families usually played an important role in approving marriages, but mutual respect and compatibility were also valued. Courtship tended to be modest and guided by social expectations. Chapter 5. Marriage. Marriage joined not only two people, but also two families. The wedding ceremony included symbolic rituals, feasting, gifts, and prayers. One of the best-known customs involved tying the garments of the bride and groom together to symbolize the union of their lives. Afterward, relatives celebrated with food, music, and conversation. Marriage was expected to be a partnership built on cooperation. Chapter 6. Raising children. Children filled Aztec neighborhoods with energy. Parents believed childhood should prepare boys and girls to become capable adults. Young children still found time to play. Games included running, throwing balls, playing with small toys made of clay or wood, and pretending to imitate adults. Children also loved listening to stories. Grandparents were especially important storytellers. Chapter 7. Storytelling. Evenings often became storytelling time. Without printed books, stories preserved history. Children heard tales about the migration from Aztlan, the founding of Tenochtitlan, great rulers, the gods, animals, heroes, and moral lessons. Each generation passed these stories to the next. In this way, memory itself became a treasure. Chapter 8. Poetry. The Aztecs admired poetry immensely. Among the elite, poets reflected on life, death, friendship, nature, love, and the search for truth. Flowers and birds often symbolize beauty and the fleeting nature of human existence. Some poems ask profound questions. Do we truly live on Earth? Or are we only here for a little while? These verses reveal a civilization deeply interested in philosophy as well as ceremony. Chapter 9. Music. Music surrounded daily life. People played drums, flutes, shell trumpets, whistles, and rattles. Music accompanied festivals, religious ceremonies, military events, family celebrations, and dancing. Children learned songs from their parents long before they became adults. Chapter 10. Dancing. Dance was one of the most important social activities. Large groups sometimes performed carefully choreographed dances during festivals. Participants wore colorful clothing, feathered costumes, and ornaments. Music echoed through plazas while spectators watched. Dancing expressed joy, devotion, and community. Chapter 11. Food. Food was central to daily life. Nearly every meal included tortillas. Other common foods included beans, squash, tomatoes, chili peppers, avocados, cactus pads, amaranth, pumpkin seeds, turkey, fish, waterfowl, and wild game. Meals varied with the seasons and local resources. Fresh produce from the chinampas was especially abundant. Chapter 12. Chocolate. One of the empire's greatest luxuries came from cacao. Chocolate did not resemble modern candy. Instead, cacao beans were roasted, ground, mixed with water, and sometimes flavored with chili, flowers, vanilla, or spices. The drink could be frothy and bitter. Cacao beans also served as a form of currency in many transactions. Chapter 13. The marketplace. The market was more than a place to buy food. It was where people exchanged news, met friends, heard traveling merchants' stories, discovered new fashions, found musicians, watched entertainers, and observed exotic animals brought from distant regions. A visit to the market was often as much a social outing as a shopping trip. Chapter 14. Medicine. Aztec medicine was remarkably sophisticated. Healers understood hundreds of medicinal plants. Treatments included herbs, massage, wound care, and splints for broken bones. Some remedies were effective and are still studied today, while others reflected the spiritual beliefs of the time. Illness was often understood as involving both physical and spiritual factors. Chapter 15. The temazcal. The temazcal, or sweat bath, served many purposes. People used it to bathe, relax, recover after hard work, support healing, and assist women after childbirth. Families often considered it an important part of maintaining health and cleanliness. Chapter 16. Games. Adults enjoyed games as well. Some games involved strategy, others tested athletic ability. The famous Mesoamerican ball game had religious and ceremonial significance in many cultures, though ordinary people also played simpler ball games and recreational activities. Families gathered to watch competitions during festivals. Chapter 17. Humor. Although written evidence is limited, it is clear the Aztecs appreciated humor. People teased friends, children played practical jokes, storytellers entertained audiences, and festivals included performers who made crowds laugh. Life was serious at times, but it was not joyless. Chapter 18. The meaning of happiness. The Aztecs recognized that life could be uncertain. Floods, droughts, disease, war, crop failures, and death. Yet they also believed happiness could be found in everyday moments, sharing a meal, watching children grow, creating beautiful cloth, singing with neighbors, walking among flowers, listening to poetry, honoring family, and living with balance and moderation. Rather than chasing endless pleasure, many Aztec moral teachings emphasized living well through discipline, community, gratitude, and fulfilling one's responsibilities. Chapter 19. A day in the life of an ordinary family. Imagine the household of an average family in Tenochtitlan. Before dawn, the mother rises to rekindle the fire and grind maize. The rhythmic sound of the metate echoes softly through the house. The father gathers his tools and prepares to leave for the chinampas by canoe. Their eldest daughter helps shape tortillas, while a younger son carries water from a nearby canal or fountain. As the sun climbs higher, the city awakens. Merchants head toward the market carrying baskets of vegetables, flowers, pottery, or woven cloth. Children attend school or help with family work. The canals fill with canoes gliding silently between neighborhoods. By midday, The marketplace is alive with conversation. The smell of roasted peppers and fresh tortillas mixes with the scent of flowers and copal incense. Musicians play nearby, while buyers examine brightly colored textiles and carved pottery. In the evening, the family gathers again. They share a meal, speak about the day's work, and listen as grandparents tell stories of ancestors who journeyed from Aztlan. Before sleeping on woven mats, they offer prayers of thanks for another day. To them, this was not an ordinary life, it was simply life. Volume 7. Chapter 1. The Empire at its Height. Around the year 1519, the Aztec Empire was one of the largest political powers in Mesoamerica. Its capital, Tenochtitlan, may have had around 200,000 people, making it one of the world's largest cities at the time. From above, the city appeared astonishing. Wide causeways connected it to the mainland. Canals crossed neighborhoods. Bridges could be raised for defense. Markets attracted tens of thousands of visitors on busy days. Temples towered over homes. Gardens overflowed with flowers. The city sparkled across the waters of Lake Texcoco. Spanish observers later wrote that they had never imagined such a place. Chapter 2. A stranger appears. In 1519, a Spanish expedition led by Hernán Cortés landed on the Gulf Coast of Mexico. His expedition was relatively small. He did not command a massive European army. Instead, he relied on a combination of diplomacy, military force, and alliances with indigenous peoples who opposed Aztec rule. The Spaniards brought unfamiliar things: horses, steel weapons, firearms, crossbows, and ships unlike anything seen in central Mexico. To many indigenous communities, these newcomers were astonishing, but they were still recognized as human beings, not supernatural creatures. Chapter 3. The Interpreter. One of the most influential figures of the conquest was Malintzin, also known as Doña Marina or La Malinche. She had been given to the Spaniards after earlier conflicts and spoke both Nahuatl and Maya languages. Working with another interpreter who knew Spanish and Maya, and later learning Spanish herself, she became an indispensable translator and advisor. Her role went far beyond translation. She helped negotiate alliances, explained cultural customs, warned of dangers, and interpreted intentions. Today she remains one of the most debated figures in Mexican history. Some view her as a survivor making impossible choices. Others have criticized her role in the conquest. Many historians emphasize the complexity of her circumstances rather than reducing her to a simple hero or villain. Chapter 4. Meeting the Aztecs. As Cortés moved inland, he encountered communities that were subjects or rivals of the Aztec Empire. Not everyone welcomed Aztec rule. Some peoples had long paid tribute to the empire and resented its demands. Others had fought repeated wars against it. These tensions mattered greatly. Rather than facing only a few hundred Spaniards, the Aztecs eventually confronted a coalition that included thousands of indigenous allies fighting alongside the Spanish. Chapter 5. Meeting the Emperor. The Aztec ruler at the time was Moctezuma II. Accounts differ on exactly how he viewed the newcomers. Early Spanish narratives sometimes suggested he believed Cortés was connected with the return of the deity Quetzalcoatl. But many modern historians question or reject this interpretation, noting that it may have been exaggerated or shaped after the conquest. What seems clearer is that Moctezuma approached the situation cautiously. He exchanged gifts, gathered information, consulted advisors, and attempted diplomacy while assessing an unfamiliar threat. Chapter 6. Tenochtitlan. When the Spaniards entered Tenochtitlan, they were astonished. They described wide streets, beautiful temples, clean canals, busy markets, and magnificent palaces. One Spanish soldier later wrote that the city resembled scenes from a dream. Many Europeans had never seen a city like it. Chapter 7. Tension grows. Relations between the visitors and the Aztec leadership became increasingly strained. At one point, Cortés took Moctezuma into custody within his own capital, hoping to strengthen Spanish influence. Tensions rose further after violence broke out during a religious festival when Spanish forces attacked unarmed participants. The event shocked the city and helped trigger widespread resistance. Trust between the two sides largely collapsed. Chapter 8. The Night of Escape. As conflict intensified, the Spaniards attempted to leave Tenochtitlan under cover of darkness. The Aztecs discovered the escape. Fighting erupted along the causeways. Many Spaniards and some of their allies were killed or drowned. The Spanish later remembered this event as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. Although it was a major defeat for Cortés, it did not end the conflict. Chapter 9. An invisible enemy. While armies prepared for more fighting, another disaster struck. Smallpox spread through central Mexico. The disease had arrived from Europe. The indigenous peoples of the Americas had no previous exposure to it and therefore little immunity. The consequences were devastating. Entire families became ill, communities lost leaders, artisans, farmers, priests, and children. The epidemic weakened the defenders of Tenochtitlan and caused immense suffering throughout the region. Many historians consider disease to have been one of the decisive factors in the conquest. Chapter 10. The Siege. In 1521, Spanish forces and their indigenous allies returned. They surrounded Tenochtitlan. The siege lasted for months. Causeways were attacked, bridges were destroyed, food supplies dwindled, fresh water became scarce. Canoe battles filled the canals, house by house, neighborhood by neighborhood. The city was fought over. Ordinary families suffered terribly. Chapter 11. The Fall. On August 13th, 1521, Tenochtitlan fell. The last emperor, Cuauhtémoc, was captured while attempting to escape by canoe. The once great city lay devastated. Many buildings had been destroyed. Thousands of people had died from warfare, starvation, and disease. The political power of the Aztec Empire came to an end. Chapter 12. Life after the conquest. The end of the empire did not mean the end of its people. Aztec families continued to live. Children were still born. Farmers still planted maize. Women still wove cloth. Communities adapted to new rulers and changing circumstances. Spanish authorities built colonial Mexico City atop the ruins of Tenochtitlan. Stones from Aztec temples were reused in churches and public buildings. The landscape changed dramatically, but many indigenous traditions endured. Chapter 13. Language. The Nahuatl language survived. Millions of people in Mexico still speak varieties of Nahuatl today. Many English words also entered global vocabulary through Nahuatl, often by way of Spanish, including chocolate, tomato, avocado, coyote, ocelot, and chili. These words are reminders of the lasting influence of Aztec and broader Nahua cultures. Chapter 14. Food that conquered the world. The foods cultivated by indigenous peoples transformed global cuisine. Maize became a staple far beyond the Americas. Tomatoes spread across Europe and eventually became central to Italian cooking. Chocolate became a worldwide favorite after being adapted with sugar and milk. Chili peppers reshaped cuisines from India to Korea to Hungary. The agricultural knowledge of Mesoamerican peoples had an impact far beyond their homeland. Chapter 15. Archaeology. For centuries, much of Tenochtitlan lay hidden beneath modern Mexico City. Today, archaeologists continue to uncover its remains. Among the most significant discoveries are those of the Templo Mayor, the principal temple of the Aztec capital. Excavations have revealed sculptures, offerings, tools, jewelry, and other objects that deepen our understanding of Aztec life. Each discovery adds another piece to the story. Chapter 16. Modern descendants. The Aztecs did not disappear. Millions of people in Mexico trace ancestry to Nahua and other indigenous communities. Many continue to speak Nahuatl, celebrate traditional festivals, prepare ancestral foods, practice traditional crafts, preserve oral histories, and maintain cultural identities that have survived centuries of change. The civilization transformed, but its descendants remain. Chapter 17. A final reflection. Imagine standing on a causeway overlooking Lake Texcoco in the early morning. Ahead of you rises Tenochtitlan. The temples catch the first light of dawn. Canoes glide silently through the canals. Smoke rises from cooking fires. The scent of fresh tortillas drifts through the air. Children laugh in courtyards. Merchants prepare for the market. Priests climb temple stairs. Farmers paddle toward the chinampas. The city is alive. For centuries, This was home. Although the empire eventually fell, the people who built it left a legacy that continues in language, food, art, agriculture, and living indigenous traditions. History remembers the conquest, but it should also remember the creativity, resilience, and humanity of the millions of people who lived, loved, worked, and hoped in the Aztec world. The Aztec story is not simply one of rise and fall. It is a story of adaptation, innovation, family, faith, and endurance. A reminder that civilizations are remembered not only through monuments, but through the lives of ordinary people who shaped them every day.